The quarter panels on this car are toast and need to be replaced. Would you look at this frickin' mess? But on top of that, doing this job is gonna give us access to fixing other elements of the car, such as the outer wheelhouse. And on top of that, opening this up is gonna give us access to hidden rust to ensure that this car never rusts again and it protects the work we've done. Now, although this is a 72 Nova, a lot of the stuff you're gonna see here can be applied to other vehicles. This is my first time doing this. Now, a job like this can be quite simple, but if you make the wrong decisions and you don't take the proper steps, you can make some mistakes like I did and have a mess like I did on the other side. My name is Trooper Max, and I'm restoring a car that's been off the road since 1977. But I've never done this before. I've taken the time to do my research, and I'm building the car of my dreams, hoping to inspire others to do the same. So today's the day we finally tackle these wacky quarter panels. We're gonna be installing these half quarter panels. Now originally we were gonna install the patch panels, and it looks like this. But we quickly abandoned that and switched to this because of all the problems we ran into. You know, this is one of those jobs that if you've never done this before, there are so many things to know even before you get started, ordering pieces and everything. You'll see that later on. But for now, this is about halfway done. What we're gonna do is we're gonna jump back at the beginning of this where we started cutting it up and get this thing going. So this is your outer wheelhouse, and basically the quarter panel sits on the outer wheelhouse, and by removing this, it exposes it and gives us the ability to change it. The problem with mine is somebody filled it with goop here, all this rubber and all this crap. It's just completely gunked up and they've cut it all up, so this has to be replaced. If the quarter panel is gone, likely the outer wheelhouse is gone too. It's just the way these work. It's kind of a system, so likely a lot of people have to change both, which is what I have to do here. The thing is, on this car, this is not actually the original wheel arch, which is why it looks in okay shape and the rest looks weird. So I'm gonna rip this thing off. I'm gonna show you why you want your car as original as possible, because if you run into something like this, it's a real pain in the ass. All right, let's unveil the sins that have been committed on this car. There it is. There's the original quarter panel, and look at that. This is like a fiberglass flare, and this is the best thing they had back in the 70s, which is the last time this thing was on the road. Let's get the rest of this thing removed. Would you look at this frickin' mess? You know, this is exactly why I was so particular looking at cars, not getting cars that somebody's worked on. Unfortunately, the fender flares in this car were the one thing that somebody had worked on, and this is the result. It's pretty bad. They actually used nails to put some of this stuff in, like construction nails. It's pretty horrible. You can see all the goop on the inside. All this stuff is just covered, so absolutely brutal. Everything's got to be cut out and just started from scratch. Okay, so because I'm gonna be cutting a bigger area, apparently your trunk can move around, things can move, so going across, getting my number, and then I just put it down. So in 3 different spots, so I know if anything moves around, I'll know by the number, because I'm only gonna do one side at a time, so I've already had the trunk on before, the trunk lid, everything closes nicely. I want it to stay that way, so that's what I'm gonna do. A lot of people will look at this and go, holy shit, what have I got myself into? Sometimes I wonder the same thing. So we've ripped open our quarter panel here, and my God, even though it looks like a mess, it's actually in great shape. I'm really pleased with it. Look how silver and nice it is. You know, this is the first car I've seen that actually has a trunk drop-off down here. That's what this part's called over here. It's nice and silver. That means we'll be able to put the quarter panel on, no problem. But this is pretty cool. Like, this is awesome. Check out all this access I have. Now I have all the access in the world. I can restore all this stuff. I could restore this area. I couldn't do that with the small panel. There was no way. Whereas now I got all the access here. I could paint it, everything. It's gonna be awesome. On the other side, when I was using that patch panel, I couldn't get the patch panel to fit properly. It just wouldn't fit. There was areas where it'd stick out and everything, even though it was cut properly. It's never quite the same. It's gonna be so much easier putting the big piece in because it's gonna be more malleable. You can bend it in, so it's gonna be a lot harder to see any sort of imperfection. So I'm really glad I switched that big piece. That's the way you have to do it. And at the same time, I didn't cut the whole thing off. I kept a whole bunch of this because I wanted to keep the structure. This is all good. It's good, strong metal. There's no reason to use the whole thing. And there's a line here. This line over here, I think it'd be really hard if I cut it over here. This is like almost like a concave area here. If I were to do that there, it'd be really hard. So I'm doing it on a flat surface. It's just gonna be much easier for a newbie like me to make it look good. So now I just had to remove a couple spot welds on the bottom to disengage it. It's just held on by this welding technique known as spot welding. You just drill those out with a Blair spot weld cutter. Then I took an air hammer and just chiseled it out, and bam, away we go. This bad boy is gonna help us remove these welds. Now I'm doing the same thing on the other side here. I've already started. But next what I gotta do is actually remove this thing. So that's what I'm gonna start doing. I've exposed all my spot welds here. There's a whole bunch of them. I don't actually know how easy it is to get rid of them because they're much smaller. So I'm just gonna drill out as many as I can and start taking this thing off. All right, so I've removed everything, got to remove. Now I'm ready to start kind of dry fitting and seeing how everything's gonna go together. And you'll notice that I actually kept this part here. The reason I kept it is because on the other side, you have to cut it off on the top. So you actually have to cut off a significant area because this part here, this is tucked in between two pieces of metal. So you really got to cut from here all the way to here. And then I did it and it just wasn't fitting properly. I had fitment issues and then there's gaps and stuff. Because this thing's intact, it's super strong, there's not really much value for me to remove this. So what I'm gonna do is I cut it like this. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna cut it and fit it in like that. However, because I already chopped off the other wheelhouse, I can't amalgamate the old and the new, so I'm gonna have to replace that one fully. Now that everything's open, I can see inside my rocker panel. And if you look inside the rocker panel, it's just jammed full of gunk and dirt and stuff. This is a perfect opportunity for me to repair this area, clean it out, take everything out of here, and I'm gonna just start fitting stuff. Check it out, the quarter panel is on. It's just fitted for now, but I gotta tell you, it actually fits really well. I'm super happy with this. And just amalgamating the two pieces was really good. And then I just used screws, self-tappers, put it on. It's on temporarily. Now, mind you, I did have to do some adjustments, like on this area here. I had to do some cutting here. I had a lot of manufacturing. Here it fits perfectly. This side is a disaster. There's so much little cutting you have to do and messing around. So I think the biggest thing I learned with this is the panels don't come exactly to fit perfectly. Like there's gonna be a lot of modifications. Inside here, I actually went to the other side and I put in a self-tapping screw just to pull it down, because later I'm gonna have to rosette weld on the inside, so from the inside there. But it's nice here, like it's perfect. I'm really happy with that. And then it lines up here almost perfectly. So now that it's in and the bottom body lines line up, everything's good there, I can start from the bottom and go up. So obviously I haven't cut the sides yet, it's still just sitting on it. What I'm gonna do is actually mark the sides and cut them. Then I'm gonna put it back on, and then I'm gonna do the top. The reason I'm doing that is because right now it's not the perfect fit. But I know from the bottom, it's straight, like it's level. It's the way I want it. It's not gonna move from side to side. However, it is gonna go up more when I do cut those. So I'll cut the sides, take it off, you know, and then put it back on with the sides cut. And that should be good, so we'll see how that goes. And bam, check it out. It's in, and it actually fit. I'm actually really happy. The gap is really good. It's sitting very level. All the lines add up. You know, the combination of using the clamps on the bottom, using, these are called butt welding clips. I use these on the side. You just twist them in, basically gives you a set of hands. And then the magnets on the top, and kind of starting from the bottom, working your way up, and also adding that screw in. Really made things nice. It's nice and level, it's flat, it works. I'm super happy with it. Took 7 hours to do, a really long time just to get the fitment, but this is something I didn't want to rush. Everything works. Now we got to take it apart all over again and start removing the rust. Hi, Bobbies. What's up?
Very many puddles.
Yeah, want to come see what Dada did? Come see the Nova. Look what Dada did on the Nova.
Oh, the wheels off and you put this on this.
Yeah, the quarter panel.
The quarter panel's on this.
What do you think? Do you like it? Look, it's...
Yeah.
So there it is. What do you guys think?
Very nice.
Like it? Pookie, what do you think, huh? Is Dad doing a good job? You're just looking up into the heavens, into the lights. Boom, boom, boom. All right, there's your car. What kind of car do you want, Bubbies?
Mustang Boss. Want the car too.
You want a Mustang Boss?
And want the car.
Yeah, a car.
Too.
Yeah, you got your car. One day maybe you'll have a Mustang Boss.
Yeah, in the garage.
In the garage? Yeah, man. Let's do it. All right, Dada's doing a good job. High five. Yeah, buddy. Boom. All right, so we removed everything off, and overall it looks pretty good. There are some areas where there was a little more rust, like up here on the inner structure, you could really see it. If you look inside there, you can see quite a bit of rust. So it's good that we've taken this all down and we could treat all this, because once this is closed up, we can't touch it again. So moisture will continue to deteriorate this. So we will tackle this, and cutting it open higher, I now could see the areas I haven't done, so I could treat everything now. There's really nothing I cannot treat. This side I could do it, on the other side I could do it all the way to the end of the trunk. Pretty much every bit of this car is exposed right now. So this is why we're gonna tackle it. So we're gonna remove the rust. I have a whole bunch of tools here. I've used these before on different stuff, so I kind of know how they work, and I've done the other side. But what I'm gonna do is just show the differences, kind of how they do. So I'll have the SCT first of all, which is overkill, but I'm gonna be using it for these Wheelhouse here. Since this is open right now, before I put on the outer Wheelhouse, might as well, you know, just smash it with this, get as much of this off as I can. Secondly, I'm just gonna use a drill with a bunch of wire attachments. This is really good in getting those tight areas. It works really, really well. Next we have our 90-degree die grinder. This is the 2-inch, I also have a 3. And then finally I have the air belt sander for those really tight areas. So we're gonna use all these tools, see how they all work, and compare. So starting off with the SCT, it just blew through the rust. Took no time at all. It just never ceases to amaze me how well this does on a large surface area. Switching over to the 90-degree die grinder, unfortunately it didn't do very well. It takes a lot more time, however it's a lot more precise and you can get in a lot smaller areas. But in terms of large surface area, not the best tool for the job. What really surprised me was the air belt sander and just how well it did. Using a 40 grit belt, this thing just tears through the rust. It did such a good job. The only thing is you blow through the belts really quickly. Using the drill with the wire brush seemed useless in this case. It just doesn't do a good job in large areas at all. So I started off using the big guns with the SCT. Started ripping the side and quickly ran into problems. All that rubber just gunked up the tools and it just wasn't coming off. I had to quickly stop. Really the only option here was scraping everything by hand, using a combination of different chisels and metal products and screwdrivers to take it off. I had forgotten about this because I did the other side 3 months ago, and even though it only took an hour, it was absolutely brutal. The worst part about this product is that it doesn't even stop the rust. It was still rusting underneath. Not much fun, but really the only option I had. Once it was off, I could finally switch back to the SCT and it just blasted through the rust. Such a large surface area in such a short amount of time, quickly was just ripping all the rust off. However, the SCT is really heavy, so I end up using a lot of combination of the SCT and the 90-degree die grinder. I just kept switching back and forth and eventually had to bust out the air belt sander for those tight areas I couldn't get, and then the drill would even come out as well. I did find the drill did a really good job in smaller areas where the rust wasn't very thick. So really this job was just a combination of using all the different tools in different ways. It's not like one tool did it better than all the others. They all had their purposes. Now if this looks tedious, it's because it was. It's a lot of work, but it has to get done. And at this point, you can see just how silver it's getting and the quality of the metal. You could really see exactly why it is this car that we decided to buy. This car is in great shape. The surface rust is just minimal. And putting in some hard work is a small price to pay to get it back to pretty much factory quality. Now I couldn't reach all the rust. I probably hit 99% of it. And I'm not even using a sandblaster. However, all the areas I wasn't able to reach, we're gonna do in the next section using chemistry. Just a matter of sucking it up and enduring the longest workout of all time. It took 7 hours to do this car, but look at the result. It's absolutely incredible that we're able to get the car back to this condition. What a perfect starting point before we go on to paint. Small price to pay, spending 1 day doing this rather than just spraying some paint blindly behind, and we can still make it better with the next step. And some quick notes. So I've been using a grinder, just a regular corded grinder for cutting all my cuts. And one thing I absolutely hate is these things, these damn black cutoff wheels. You know, I end up using these ones because this just lasts way better. I'll do not even one cut and this thing's over and they're just destroying. They're just a waste of money. They're just garbage. So these are the guys we're using. They've just been much better. And in terms of safety, you've noticed that I'm using a full mask. So I'm using one of these guys. So if you've watched previously, you saw that I had a pretty significant eye injury. And now my eye always turns red. I'm lucky I didn't lose the eye, but it turns red all the time now. It's always irritated, even though it's been many months since this has happened. So I wear a full mask now. There's no chance of stuff going underneath. I honestly hate wearing the mask and the glasses because they always fog up. You just can't see anything. You know, this doesn't happen when you have the full face mask. And at the same time, you know, when you're doing this kind of stuff, there's all this crap in there. You blow your nose, it's just black death. No more of that with this. So that's why I use this. I know a lot of people be like, that is overkill. Why are you using that? Well, actually, I'm gonna show you right now exactly why I'm using this. Okay, check this out. Goggles, right? Regular goggles you wear. Now, I had these on when the spark went in my eye and I had to go to the hospital. Look, you see all this damage here? Check this out. Nothing. Flip it inside out. The sparks actually are going inside. These are goggles. They're supposed to wrap around your face. And yet the sparks are still getting underneath and they're melting it from the inside. And that's what happened. I had one go in my eye and I had to take it out, and it was not much fun having a needle this big going into your eyeball. So anyways, not wearing that crap anymore. I'm gonna protect my eyes, and even if it looks stupid and people are like, wow, that's overkill, you know what? When you get a piece of metal in your eye, you might think differently. Now in a job like this where you don't have much experience like I do, it's good to have as much efficiency as you can. So if you can improve it and do things quicker, it's gonna help you a lot. And something a lot of people have mentioned to me when they saw me doing all the floor pans, all the other videos, is they told me, Max, get yourself a self-dimming helmet. You know, I was using the helmet and flipping up and down. I didn't even know there was a self-dimming helmet. Turns out there is. This is what it looks like. So I picked one up. So this is a self-dimming helmet. It's battery powered, and it's also got a little solar thing here, basically it charges. So apparently you put this on and you can weld and it will dim and you can still see when it's not welding, so that's kind of cool. I'm not really sure how that works. I didn't even know it existed until now, so we're gonna try it out. At the same time, I got myself a welding jacket. I've gotten burned so much under the car that I just decided to get this. I'm not always gonna wear this, but just a leather, jacket just to protect myself, because I was just tired of getting my chest all burned up. So, like I said, let's give this thing a shot and see how it works. I can actually see. Like, it definitely kind of worked. It's just weird. That's strange to me. Oh shoot, that actually works. Whoa, okay, that's really cool. Wow. All right, let's see if you can see what I can see. Okay, so yeah, this will save us a lot of time. Sometimes it's worth spending a little bit of money if you're gonna be more efficient and you can do better quality work. All right, so we're just about ready to tackle the rest of the rust. And before we do that, we actually ran into some problems. If you look into this corner over here, I actually found that they had patched this part. So I had to rip it off, take it all off, and go right down to the metal. This kind of sucks because I had cut my panel already, so now I'm gonna have to stitch it together. But at least I kept that part so I could put it back on. And there was just so much dirt and gunk behind there. I couldn't believe how much crap was behind there. So I'm glad we did it. On the other side, we're actually gonna keep the whole panel all the way to the end where the tack welds are, because as you can see, just so much dirt and debris gets collected there. So that's the way she goes. And then also at the same time, I had some repair work to do. So I did some welding on this side. I'm actually quite proud of this. So the inner wheelhouse was actually quite gone here. There was nothing left. So when I started fitting it, I realized that there's a hole. So I took a piece of the wheel well that we had left over that I'd chopped off and ended up manufacturing this piece. And just by bending and stuff, was able to get it to the right size. And now it works. So we got the piece here, it's all complete, and this is awesome. So now we're ready to start tackling with the rest of the rust. And you're probably telling yourself, well, there's not much rust here. Well, there's actually more than you think, and a lot of it's not even visible to the eye. The whole point is to get this to stop rusting. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a product, we always use it, it's called OSFO. So we're gonna throw our OSFO on, and basically what we just do is just take these Scotch-Brite pads, and you just start rubbing it in. What this does is this removes the rust, but also encapsulates it. So if you keep this stuff on, it's not gonna keep rusting. So I can keep working on the car, and this could just remain like this until I prime it, which is what I got on the other side. And look at that. You see how it's all muddy like that? I grinded the hell out of this, and look how much rust is still there. There is so much more than you realize. It's crazy. So that's really all there's to it. It's pretty simple. We're gonna go around the whole area here. This thing's gonna look brand new. So time has passed, OSFO has done his job, and check this out. This looks awesome. So pleased with this. This is easily a 99% finish. There's a few little minor areas I probably could have done a little bit better, but really I could have only done that with a sandblaster. Otherwise, I'm super happy. This looks great. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start getting ready for paint. So before we start painting, I gotta take down the acidity, so I'm just gonna use my lacquer thinner as always, splash some on, and kind of go around the whole car. We'll just wipe down the whole thing. Now I'll remove the OSFO any places where I'm gonna have spot welds, because I don't actually want any there. Already removed all the OSFO right down to bare metal. End up using belt sander actually a lot more because it did a much better job. We put some tape up, ended up actually washing the whole thing with wax and grease remover. So we just put the Eastwood on, clean it off. It's good to go. Now I'm ready to put on our U-Pull copper weld through primer. So anywhere we have two pieces of metal that are together, we just want to protect it furthermore. So that's what I'm going to do. Our weld through primer is all dry. I've already taken the time to remove all the tape, and now we're ready to move on next stage. But prior to doing any more painting, we actually have to put on the outside wheelhouse, because this wheelhouse is really important before we do any painting, because there's going to be seam sealer, and this has to be on. But even before that, there's one more thing we can tackle, and that is hidden rust that we cannot actually get to, and that's in the inner structure and in the rocker. So over here in the rocker panels, I'm actually going to be able to tackle that. Going to use a product as well inside there. We can also do it. So what we're going to do is going to be using this stuff right here. This is the Eastwood internal frame coating. this is pretty much the only option we really have to tackle the interior rust that we cannot get to. So that's what we're gonna do. We got our straw, we're gonna put it in, and here's the problem, look. Can't really wind it in there. It's not stiff enough. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use another trick. Coat hanger. We'll set this up and we'll get to the next stage. So here we go. Say hello to my little friend Chico. So this is my little creation. And this should do it. Now I can really get in there pretty far. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put this thing in and see how it works. Okay, it is gonna be next to impossible to see or to actually remove everything out of there. I've removed as much as I can, but whatever's there is gonna stay, unfortunately. We're just gonna do this, we're gonna trust it's gonna work, and then we'll see as much as we can, I guess. Not sure what the spray pattern is. Okay, it just goes all ways. Well, it's definitely working because it's dripping out over here. Okay, it's gonna be next to impossible seeing there. I'm just gonna try using a little camera here and try to go in there and see. I think this is the only thing that's gonna have any shot to actually see in there. Okay. Okay, so I can see. Yeah, it did pretty well. Like, I gotta do this closer area, but that's awesome. That's pretty good. I'm gonna keep going. Oh yeah, that got it. Oh wow, it is pretty much totally coated. I'm actually gonna make a hole on the other side and go in through there, and then I'll just try to put in some other areas as well. Like, I could pretty much get to the halfway to the rocker with this, so if I put a hole on the other side of the rocker, I can meet it, and it's gonna work out. Wow. I wanna say that worked. You know, even if it's not perfect, it's something. Like, otherwise, I'd have nothing in there. It's just been bare metal all these years. Now, there's just another form of protection. Oh, and something really quick here. Because this part I opened, I can actually put my hand inside the inner structure. We can spray this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spray it in there. And just a note, so I sprayed the rocker panels. I would say that there's probably 95% coverage there. I'm super happy with it. You know, you could be the judge of that. However, I'm pretty happy. And the can is pretty much almost empty. There's almost nothing left. So man, the high volume of this, like, you need a lot of cans to do this, but at least those are done. So what I'm gonna do now is actually put it in there, because I don't want to have access in there again. This is why I took it off in the first place. I want to do this. But I could just do it from the inside anyway, so maybe it's kind of stupid. Wow. Yeah, there we go. Not bad. I'm pretty happy with that. Exciting times. It's time to get this outer wheelhouse on. Now, I had already taken the time to remove all the paint and put on our weld through primer so it's ready to go. First thing we gotta do is we actually have to add holes into it because we need holes to weld through. And normally I use a drill. That takes forever. That's been one of my biggest waste of time there is. So you know what? I picked up a new tool. Check this out. This is a flange tool. So I haven't tried it yet. It has the right size hole for your spot weld. So, all right, let's give this thing a shot. See how she does. Okay, that's simple enough. I kind of wish the holes were closer to the inside, but yeah, you can't win all the battles. Just go all the way around. All right, check this out. Got all my holes. You know, that only took about a minute. I don't even think it'll take longer than that. Usually, this will probably take me 10-15 minutes to drill all that, especially with the crappy drill bits that I have and such an awkward angle. This is awesome. Let's put this thing on. All right, so we've dry fitted our piece. It goes in nicely, and I just got a clamp for now, and then I got this butt welding clamp just to line it all up here, but it looks really good. The gap's not bad. Let's just try welding this thing together. outer wheelhouse is on. The butt weld is done. It's not the best weld in the world, but it doesn't matter. This is really not going to be seen, so it doesn't have to be beautiful. I will grind it down a bit and clean it up before I do paint and everything. However, for now, this is good. I did end up loosening these a little bit and just pushing the wheelhouse ever so slightly closer, just to make a really tight fit. And then I put them all back on when this is done. So this way, the hole was as small as possible. Now it's time to move on to our rosette weld. So we're gonna do them all along here. Put a billion clamps on. You want it tight, so that's what we're gonna do. I think I'm a little infamous, unfortunately, for my terrible welds in the floor pan video. So it's time to redeem myself. Hopefully, let's do these and see what we can do. There we go, that one came out really good. Nice and flush. Okay. Whew, almost perfect. Sometimes just needs a little touch up, but overall that's really good. You want to come help me?
Yeah.
Look, we're gonna do some sanding. Go like this. See, scratch it. Scratch it really good. Atta boy. Scratch up that paint. You take the can and you press like this. Outer wheelhouse is on. I'm pretty pleased. The weld actually came out pretty good. And for a guy that's not a professional welder, it came out pretty good. Happy with that. Even the spot welds that I did look pretty good. Overall, very pleased. I'll be really happy once this is all on and everything fits. I put in the exact same holes before, so it should be the same spot, but you never know at the end of the day. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna be painting. So before doing this, I actually took the time to take a 120, I scuffed this up, because when putting on new primer, you really want to make sure there's some tooth here. The epoxy adheres a lot better if there's that. And then I just took wax and grease remover. I went all along, just clean it off, make sure it's clean. So now it's ready to go, not a spot. So I'm going to be using this. This is the 2K Max. I've been using this a lot, 2-part epoxy. So basically what I got to do first, shake it for 2 minutes, flip it upside down, put this red tab under here, shake it for 2 minutes, and then we can use it. So everything's all painted, ready to go. There's not much science behind it. All I did was spray it down, just kept going over until I'm happy with the coverage. And today, I got a little helper. What are you gonna do today?
Work on the Nova.
All right, now we're gonna get to the next stage, which is seam sealing. It's not something we've done before. We're gonna be using 2 products. For areas that are hard to reach, we're gonna be using this AC Delco product. This is just a medium body seam filler, and it's not completely waterproof, but it's good stuff for what it's gonna be. This is going in a low water area. And then for the higher water areas, we got this. And at the same time, this is just easier to put on, so we're gonna put it on. For exterior areas, we're gonna use a 2-part epoxy, but we're not doing that right now. That's more for the bottom of the car and inside here, which we're not doing. Right now, we're just doing the outside. Let's put it on. All right, so for this, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it here and back there, so I'm just gonna do a nice dollop.
Here goes puppies.
Here you bubbies. Look at this, we're just gonna put some seam sealer. Fill this area up nicely with the goop. For the record, I'm also using a caulking gun that's auto start-stop, so basically, as soon as you let go, it stops, which is really nice. I haven't had one like that before. Usually, you gotta hit the thing at the back, but it stops by itself, which is really nice.
It's too hot?
No, it's not hot. Okay, we'll take our finger, we'll just wipe. The old painter's trick. All right, so this is my Reach Pro 6000. Let's see, put it in there. There we go, that works. Look at that, bobbies. Filled. All right, so we're gonna do our seam sealer now. Basically, I'm just gonna do these areas, and I am gonna run a little bit on here just in case. I have a fan on. I opened the garage door because it says harmful vapors. Let's do this. Just take it.
Black paint.
It looks like black paint. Yeah, look, you can just paint it on. Look at that. You want to try?
I know.
No. I thought you were going to help me today. What's going on?
Put it on the glue.
Put it on the glue.
Put it on the white.
On the white? We got to let the white dry first. You want to do it? There you go. Dip it. Yeah, do it up there. There you go. Yeah. Let it go like this. There you go. Strokes. There you go. Fill it in. That's it. That's all there's to it. Fill every crack.
Here.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Righty, epoxy and seam sealer is all cured. Look at this. This actually looks really good. It was almost a shame to have to put that seam sealer on because it looked so good before, but actually it looks pretty good. This is all hidden. It doesn't really matter. The important part is it's weather protected. So the last stage is to actually take our Eastwood chassis black. This is what we've been using in hidden areas where we can't see. I'm just gonna paint the areas I'm not gonna have access to later on. Once the quarter panel's on, I'm not gonna be able to see this. This is what I'm gonna do. So I'm just gonna splash this stuff on and get this puppy ready to go. Paint's all dry and let me say wow. Can I say that? Check it out, this looks sweet. I'm super happy with this. I didn't paint the wheelhouse because the wheelhouse is gonna be a different color. I don't know what color the inside is gonna be, but you can see the wheelhouse from the inside of the trunk, so that's why I didn't paint it. This stuff you really can't see, and it's hard to access afterwards once the quarter panel's on, so having it protect like this is awesome. You know, I can't believe this is so cool. I really like the Eastwood chassis black. I love the satin finish. Kind of makes me want to go all satin black in the whole interior of the car. It just looks really cool in my opinion. Doing these 3 coats of the OSPO and the primer and then the satin black finish, it's really strong. Like, I know this area will probably never rust again. You know, at the very least it's protected. The inside has the internal frame coating. Like, this is as protected as you can get, so this is great. I'm super happy about it. It turned out pretty good. I'm not mad about this transition. It looks pretty good. The other side looks better because you don't have that transition. I went all the way there, and to be honest with you, I'm not even sure what method I prefer. I found this one maybe a little bit easier than the other one. The other one I really had to muscle it in there, but that one looks better for sure. So anyways, everyone could choose kind of what they like. It's personal preference, really. So now I'm ready to close this thing up. And I'm about to close it up, and then I've run into a dilemma. Actually, it's not so much a dilemma as it is an opportunity. So I'm putting in a lot of effort here, and all this stuff is done pretty well. But check it out. If you look over here, look at this. We got all the access in the world. I'm going to be working on the trunk, and I've decided that I'm actually going to do some sandblasting inside here because some of these areas is just going to be impossible with the wire brush and everything. So if I close this up, this closes up to here, there's going to be sand trapped in these areas. I will never get it out, even with a, you know, a vacuum, all this stuff. There's so little access here. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep it all open. I'm going to stop. I'm going to work on the whole inside of the car. I'm going to get it all done and then come back to this. I really wish I could just finish this and get it done, but honestly, it doesn't make sense. If I'm putting all this effort, it's gonna be so much easier to work on the inside of the car. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna stop production, we're gonna come back, and hopefully this will be all good to go. So 5 weeks has gone by, and the entire interior of the car has been completely stripped. Without giving away too much, I'll say this was one hell of an experience. But you're gonna have to keep watching to find out what happens. All I'm gonna say is there's a lot more surprise with these old cars than you could expect. Anyways, back here at the quarter panel, we're ready to put it back on. Check this out. Now that we have all this done, no dirt, debris, metal, or grinder shavings are gonna go in here. So this is awesome. This is why we did this. And doing this part, I'll tell you right now, it was such a freaking mess that I'm glad I kept these off. My first recommendation is if you're doing this, wait till the end. It's just so much easier to have everything done. Second thing I learned is a mistake I actually made. I had painted this, I put my primer on, I put the chassis black and everything. I actually had some surprises on the inside that required a lot of grinding, and the grinder sparks hit this inside and the paint actually came off. I noticed that the OSFO and the primer did a really good job. The primer is actually damn near bulletproof, I gotta tell you. I am really surprised that little can did as good of a job as it did. This is 5 weeks later. It's been beat up and it's still in really good shape. But the Eastwood chassis black, I'm not a huge fan of. I'll be completely honest with you. It really doesn't take much heat for it to come off. So, you know, I really wish I had done that much later on. That's why I should have stripped everything first and got to this. But you know what? Lesson learned there. If you're just doing quarter panel, what the hell? It doesn't matter. Get her done. So today is the day we finally put these things back on. So that all looks really good. I'm really happy with it. One thing I also wanted to mention is this seam sealer. You know, you're supposed to use a 2-part seam sealer in most cases, an epoxy. It's super, super strong. This one isn't, it's just the 1 part that we use. And I gotta tell you, it's taken a beating, and I'm also very surprised of how good it is. That was the Eastwood brush on, so probably gonna be using more of that in the future. I'm pretty impressed with it. For what it is and the price, it did a good job. Now, let's get this thing ready for the quarter panel. So the first thing I did was put these window cranks back on. Now I had removed these when I was doing the interior. It was really exciting to see that first bolt go in. A real milestone, because for the past 7 months, I've only seen this thing coming apart. So seeing it slowly come back together was just really good for morale. I really wish I had done this window crank from the start, because I left it on and unfortunately some of the grinder sparks did compromise one of the windows. Moving on to the back of the car, I ended up using a pneumatic punch and shooting some holes directly into the trunk drop-off. Now this went super fast and it's just much quicker than drilling. Now usually these holes go in the quarter panel itself. However, the quarter panel is new metal and this trunk drop-off is really old. And because it's fatigued, I know that if I try to do spot welding right into this trunk drop-off, it's just gonna burn right through. So I'd rather do it from the inside and have it go directly onto the quarter panel. A little unconventional for the restoration books, but I know it's gonna work. Moving on, I grabbed the impact gun with a wire brush attachment and just went all around the perimeter, taking off the paint, rust, and any sort of contaminants. In the past, I hadn't done this and I was just fighting with the welds. It has to be completely clean. Otherwise, you're just gonna run into problems. It's crucial that it's bare metal on bare metal as clean as possible with no contaminants so that your welds will turn out as good as possible. The wire brush did a great job. It just ripped right through the paint. Now with the car ready to receive metal, it's time to move on to the panel itself. First thing I did was I took a drill, ended up making my holes for our Rosette welds. These holes are where our spot welds are gonna be, and it's really important to have these drilled out before we put it on. Then it was just about grabbing grinder, grinding off all the metal debris, as well as any paint and primer on the surface, making sure it's bare metal, grabbing some wax and grease remover, cleaning off the surface, then taking our weld-through primer and just shooting it on. This weld-through primer will just protect in between the surfaces, which is one of the biggest problems with these old vehicles. Now at this point, with the panels being off, there's still some prep to do. So the first thing I had to do was take off those frustrating stickers. First using a screwdriver to scrape them off, then using some Varsol to remove the glue. Once that was all done, I was just able to scuff it up with a 120 grit so it's ready to receive our primer. This just gives the panel tooth and it ensures that the epoxy primer won't have a failure with adhesion. Now once the panels are on, it's going to be really difficult with access, so it's good to do a bunch of things ahead of time. Then finally, it was just about getting the perimeter of the surface ready for welding so that both surfaces are ready to go. Once everything was ready, it was time for welding. I was able to put that piece I'd taken off earlier and just put it back on like it was never taken off in the first place. This is going to be much harder to put on later on, so that's why I did it right now. And now, the panel is all ready to go. So we got our quarter panel back on, we got our clamps on, and we're ready to go. Now I know this looks like a ludicrous amount of clamps, and it probably is, but honestly this is going to ensure that we have the most professional looking result possible. And in some areas I have flat stock steel holding it on just so I don't damage the outside. I want the outer wheelhouse to really be inside the quarter panel, so that's why I did it. At the same time, we got all of our tools ready. So we got our self-dimming helmet, that's going to help us out. We got a brush because we're going to be using flux core wire, we got to clean it off. As always, going to be using our Thulium welder and just using flux core wire. I know all the pros don't use flux core, they use the gas. Yes, you get a better result, it's cleaner, and it doesn't burn as hot. So flux core is harder because it burns hotter. So if you're new to this, that's why it's so difficult working with flux core. You can burn right through the panels. You know, this is my 7th month working on this car, and I said earlier on you should do this last. The reason for that is because I did so much welding in the car, and I was so terrible when I started. My welds were god-awful. I've come a long way since then, so if I'm doing something that's going to be seen from the outside, you really want to do that at the end, so that's why we did it this way. Now, the welder itself, I have it set to 93, low wire speed and low voltage. I really do not want this thing burning through, so everything's got to be minimum, and I don't want much metal. At the same time, I threw in a 10-pound spool because I was still getting a bit of jerkiness on the low speed. With some of the welders, it's just a little bit jerky, so having the big spool inside that's really heavy, it just allows for a nice, consistent wire speed. So I'm just going to be going through all the tricks that I've learned on this job to see what we can do to make this as professional as possible for somebody who's never done it before. Wish me luck. So proper fitment is key. Lots of clips, using some magnets in some areas where I can't get the clips in, and as well having it as tight as possible will make sure that this weld has the best chance possible. Unfortunately, this area weren't so lucky. We have a pretty big gap, but don't worry, we'll take care of those as well. Alrighty, so this section is really nice and flat, so this is where I'm going to be starting. So all I want to do is I want to do a little tack weld every 6 inches or so. I don't want to go super close because I will get warpage, so the idea is put a lot of space between them, so let's just catch it. All I'm going to do is give it a little shot first and then give it a second shot just so there's a little bit of metal there to work with, because otherwise it just burns right through. I'll show you what I mean. Start it. And there we go. And that's tacked on. 6 inches. There we go. And we'll just go all the way around. All right, I took off the clips. I already went around the second time every 6 inches. Did my second pass. Now it's time to do a third pass. Alrighty, our tack welds are all done. We've gone all around. You know, I just kept going every 6 inches. I made sure never to get closer in order to avoid warpage. And when I look at this thing, I don't see any warpage. It looks nice and straight, so I'm really happy. Despite my best efforts, I still had a huge gap. I just took the gun and I took more wire than I would need it, just super long. I would let the ball fall and then you just weld it in place. That worked as well. I'm not sure what the right move is, the technique of how to, you know, fix big gaps, but that's what worked for me. So overall, I'm not mad about it. So anyways, we're gonna continue now. Next thing I wanna do is I gotta fill these in between. Now that we have them all tacked together, I'm gonna use a technique that Bad Chad uses. He calls it the fours. And what he basically does is he takes the gun and he hits 4 spots and he overlaps them so that there's no pinholes. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit it 4 times, overlap them, then we're gonna take our air gun and cool it down to avoid warpage. So let's try this pro technique and see how it works. All right, let's try this flat area over here. Grab an air. Wow, that actually worked really well. Clean it off. I am not disappointed with that. Look at that. See, we got the black ring. That means the heat went through. We got penetration. That's awesome. Super happy with that. We're just gonna keep going around. So that actually works quite well. I'm pretty impressed. It's good penetration overall, works well. The one thing I noticed is I'm gonna have to call it the 3s instead of the 4s, because I noticed at the 4th one, it usually starts to burn through. I think that's because it's flux core and not the gas, so I think that's one of the drawbacks. But overall, it did the job. Once again, I'm looking at the panel. I don't see any warpage. That's pretty darn straight, so I'm happy. Alrighty, now it's time to do our spot welds, or Rosette welds, basically, where we drilled our panels. Everything's gotta be tight. All we gotta do is take it and fill it in. Now, I did turn up the heat slightly. I put it between low and normal for this because I do want a little more heat here. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna hit it in a circular motion. And that's it, voila. Pretty freaking cool. I'm happy with that. clean it off, it looks good. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take another clamp. I'm gonna do another one, but before I do that next one, I actually wanna put something here. I want this really tight metal on metal, so I'm just gonna put these vice grips in as close as I can without ruining my work. For under here, all I'm doing is going from the inside. Bam. That's it. Go around the car. See, I did my spot weld, and you can kind of see the burn on the other side, but you can't actually see any sort of deformation, so that's why I like doing it from that side. Now, mind you, there's a bumper here, so it doesn't really matter, but it's still nice to have that clean look. Alrighty, so that's going pretty good, and then finally the last spot is to take the gun and actually weld in there. So that's the hardest spot of them all. I'm just gonna go around the whole car, keep welding, and get this job done. So we've concluded our welding, and would you look at that? That looks pretty darn good if I don't say so myself. I'm actually really proud of this. I can't believe, as a first timer, I was able to do this. Honestly, it looks great. It's not perfect, believe it or not, there actually is a little bit of warpage. When I went back and checked my footage of doing the time lapse when I was doing bad Chad's method, you can actually see the metal expanding, contracting. So I got all scared and I decided to abandon that technique, and I did another technique. So basically I would tack it every 6 inches, move on every 6 inches, and after every 2 passes, cool it down. And for the other side there, first thing I did is I filled my big gaps. And the way I did that is I took the gun, put on a 45-degree angle, shot it twice, and then moved on. And then after 2 passes, I take my air, hit it with the air, and just keep going over and over. However, in the end, it looks pretty much the same over there as over here. So I don't think there's anything wrong with Chad's method. I think it might be the fact it's the flux core wire because it burns hotter. But at the same time, it's so minimal, like a little bit of body filler will fill it. Maybe someone can help me answer that question. Why are we still getting warpage even with all those tricks? Maybe I did something wrong, let me know. Super happy with the job. It's all finished as far as I'm concerned. All I gotta do is grind it down, but I'm gonna do that when I start doing the body work. For now, we're finished. Now, another thing I want to do is when I was working on this stuff, I had somebody help me out. So our good friend Richard from Cartridge Classic, he gave me a lot of tips doing this kind of stuff. He filled in all the blanks, so he does massive rebuild jobs on cars, so it was really nice of him to help us out. So big shout out to Richard, thanks man. If you haven't checked this channel, I recommend it. He builds amazing stuff, far beyond what a DIY can do. That's what the best of the best do. So next thing is the firewall. And if you want to watch a cautionary tale about what you can find hidden in these cars, the firewall is for you guys. I think you guys are really enjoying that video. That is one hell of a job. See you guys there.